evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to In the Crease. I am very excited to have this show back on the air. As you know, we had a several-year hiatus. A lot of that was for reasons above and beyond, not the least of which was the COVID thing. But, you know, I tell you what, we needed to get this show back on the air because back in 1988, that's a long time ago, boys and girls, we started this show, and at the time, it was one of the few, only, all hockey talk shows in the nation. I mean, that wasn't even considered anything. And especially here in Pittsburgh, it was never even considered at all. Nobody talked hockey until the Pens started winning Stanley Cups, and then that came down. So we were a little bit ahead of the game, and we gave, I think, a different perspective as to what was going on as far as hockey and behind the scenes and what have you. And now if you look at who's talking hockey today, it doesn't matter if they have a hockey talk show or a regular sports talk show, they're towing the NHL line. All those things that are associated with ESPN, they're part of the Disney woke agenda. None of that stuff is giving you hockey. They're giving you a lot of junk and garbage. So we needed to come back for the true hockey fans. And I am very excited to have Bob Nelson back as my co-host. Bob, good to see you again, brother.
Nice seeing you again.
Yeah,
been too long.
It has been too long. And I do want to say one thing before we get into tonight's show. I don't think it's any big secret. Bob is a huge Flyers fan. I'm a huge Boston fan. But I am wearing a St. Louis Blues jersey tonight. In fact, this is a vintage jersey. It's number 2. It has Al McGinnis's name on the back.
Moses.
That'll bring back some nice memories for you folks. And I got to tell you why I did this. Some years ago, I had the opportunity to work in a little town called Ajo, and it's in Arizona. And this town is ridiculously small. In fact, as you enter the town, there is a sign that says, "Welcome to Ajo, Arizona. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there." Okay? So even the folks, it's 39 miles from the Mexican border. So it's really down, a small little town down there. But the reason I bring that up is I met some really great friends when I was working in Ajo. And believe it or not, all but one of them were huge hockey fans. And it's like amazing because you can't grow ice anywhere in Ajo. I mean, it's just too damn hot down there. And one of the people that I met down there, there's about a half a dozen of them that have stayed in touch with me, and we constantly talk hockey on the social media and what have you. But Venus is a huge St. Louis Blues fan, and the year the Blues won, oh my God, there was just no dealing with her. I mean, it was like, especially since they played Boston, you know, our social thing kind of blew up there. But she is an absolutely wonderful lady and a big Blues fan, and I thought in her honor, because she's keeping hockey alive in the middle of the Sonora Desert, I thought, Venus, this shirt is on here for you. It is really good to have you back again.
It's great, but that Stanley Cup also brings back some bad memories for me. That was when I passed my kidney stone. As the captain of the St. Louis Blues raised it, I ran to the bathroom and gave birth to a kidney stone. It was by far the most painful Stanley Cup I've ever experienced in my life, and I hope the next time I watch the Stanley Cup I don't give birth to another kidney stone. But yeah, that's why I won't wear a St. Louis Blues shirt, because they caused me to have a kidney stone, I guess, to attack.
I can understand that. Those are painful indeed. Hey, let's get on with tonight's program. As you know, we're taping this the opening week, so hockey officially opens up this week. But we wanted to do a show beforehand to kind of give you a rundown on what we think is going on, and this is what we officially call Block A. And in Block A, we want to deal with the Eastern Conference. Boy, the Eastern Conference has 2 divisions, the Atlantic and the Metropolitan. Let me start off by saying that in the Atlantic Division, goaltending at all this year, I think, is mediocre at best.
Well, you're kind.
I'm kind.
You're very kind.
Okay.
Very kind, Fiora.
In the Atlantic Division, I have my personal preference. Most of these teams come out with a B rating. I did give a B+ to Florida because the Panthers, let me get my notes in here, they have They still have Bobo, don't they?
Bobrovsky, and they just signed Knight.
Yeah, and they got Spencer Knight. So that's not a bad 1-2 combination. The only A I gave in this division was Tampa Bay, because they have probably the best goalie going in Vasilevsky, I think. Did they get is he Reimer with them, or?
It don't matter, because the bottom line is Tampa doesn't need a backup goalie. Vasilevsky's going to play 85% of the game. Unless he gets hurt, he's going to play every game in the playoffs. You know, the biggest reason I have Tampa a little bit down on my list is the simple fact that Tampa, if you look at them, they played a lot of games in the last 3-4 years. And that takes its toll. If you look at their playoffs run last year, they ran out of gas because they played an additional, 12 to 20 games every season after the 80-some games that you play in the regular season, and their team's getting old.
Ooh, okay.
And to me, that conference gets beat up on because you have some physical teams like Boston in that area, and Tampa plays that style, and you cannot play that way 80-plus games, plus going to the playoffs. And the playoffs is like another situation. It's, you talk about the regular season being tough, times that by 4, and that's playoff hockey. Yeah. And that's why playoff hockey, if you watch hockey, that's the time you want to watch hockey, is playoff hockey. Regular season can be a little bit watered down. Some teams like to coast in. Some teams know they're going to be in the middle of the pack, so they set their standing up, with matchups and all that. But when it comes to playoff time, every shift, every second on that ice, someone's going to get hurt because it is that physical, it is that brutal. And that's why I don't think Tampa's gonna even make it to the finals, because their car has a lot of mileage on it and the tires are bare.
Wow. Well, their backup, I find my notes, is Brian Elliott.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad 1-2 punch.
But not a healthy goalie either, because when he played in Philly, it was hard for him to stay healthy.
Yeah, it was.
When he was in St. Louis, he was 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
So he is an older guy.
Yeah.
Again, Tampa seems to find a way to get in the playoffs. They like to bend the rules with putting some guys on the injured list and bringing them out after the regular season's over. They bring them back so they don't have to waste their salary cap to keep them under the budget. They did that 2 years in a row, and a lot of GMs did not like it. When you had a couple key players like Stamkos, the 1 year injured, he didn't come back till the playoffs. They didn't have to eat his salary during the regular season. Insurance paid for it, and all of a sudden. To me, the two teams I think you got to really look out for is Florida and Toronto. And until Toronto makes up their mind whether they're in it for the long haul, meaning they need to go out and find a goaltender that can win them playoff games. And,
Well, that's interesting you said that, because Toronto had picked up Matt Murray.
Correct.
And fans here in Pittsburgh certainly know Matt Murray. He had an awful lot of problems up in Ottawa.
Correct. And he, to be honest with you, for all the rings that he's established in Pittsburgh, I mean, I don't know about you, but, sometimes in goaltending, age is more valuable than youth. And I know Murray won a lot of cups, and I know Fleury was here also, and I know Fleury's a fan favorite, and Fleury has done a lot for the organization wherever he's been, because he's just that type of person.
Sure.
I think Pittsburgh did make a mistake, hindsight. They should have probably kept the veteran, because Murray, when he didn't have anyone to push him here in Pittsburgh, was not the same goalie as he had when he had a guy behind him. Right. And whether you want to believe it or not, you could say Murray won cups, could also say Fleury won cups. You could also say both goalies won cups. And teams that win Stanley Cup need 2 top goalies now in the game, because the game is so difficult. There's always an injury. There's always seems like a key goalie going down when a team's making a run at it.
Yep.
And for Toronto to take wondering at a former Stanley Cup goalie, I think it was a very much a reach, especially with some of his off-ice situations and problems that he had to deal with, loss of his father and some other things that we won't mention. I think Toronto did not go out and get a piece of the puzzle. They can score all the goals they want in the regular season. They have a great American-born player in Matthews, but until you get that guy to keep the puck out of the net, I don't care how many goals you score, because if that's the case, Edmonton would have probably won the cup.
Yeah. Well, their other goalie is Samsonov, Ilya Samsonov.
Yes.
So if Murray can find his old game,
another career backup.
Yeah,
You know, and Samson.
A lot of these goalies, and Montreal. You know, I hate Montreal. I really do. I don't only hate Montreal. I hate people who root for Montreal. It's just that bad. You know,
So you hate me that bad. You feel bad for that organization because of Carey Price.
Carey Price on the IR. He's gone. They're speculating for the season, and they just signed Jake Allen to a 2-year deal. I don't know if you can rest the fate of the team on Jake Allen. I like Jake Allen, but
well, they got a couple young prospects.
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
Primo's there.
Yeah.
They do have a guy that's in their minor league that I think is a real diamond in the rough. But but the situation is their GM, his hands are tied because he needed to move Price. And I know this is more of a depression situation than a health injury. I really believe that. I also believe that Carey Price has went through some really tough times. Yeah. I believe that the organization threw him under the bus because, you know, for a lot of years in Montreal, Carey Price was the Canadiens, and he carried that team. And that just goes to show you, if you have a legitimate goaltender in your nets, you can upset some pretty good teams. And they did it to Pittsburgh. And they've done it to a bunch of teams just because when you have a stud goalie, that goes a long way. And that's why, you know, we are particularly fond of the goaltending in this world. We both played it. The show's called In the Crease. And I'm telling you, teams that win the cup, you have great goaltending. And if you don't, you're not going to win the cup.
Hear, hear. Let's jump over to the Metropolitan. By the way, Tampa Bay, I think, was the only team I gave an A to. St. Louis, I gave an A to. But that's next block. If we move over to the metropolitan area, I don't have anybody real. Well, actually, I lied. I do have a couple of strong netminders here for both the Rangers and the Hurricanes. The rest of them all are Bs and B minuses. I guess we should talk Pittsburgh because the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think, have a nice team, but they have nothing in net.
Correct.
They have nothing in net.
They have a bunch of prospects, which, again, it's hard to say, hey, let's flip a coin, who's going in net? And you need an established number one. I think Pittsburgh's in the same boat. Besides, you know, that's another team that I know people are going to say, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you hate them. But Pittsburgh, for the last 4 seasons, have banked on the same roster, meaning the same 3-headed monster. They're not healthy. They're a year older. I know you couldn't get rid of Letang because there's no one out there to replace them. But the simple fact of the matter is the team's another year older. And they can't get by the first round. I don't care if everyone says they have the best hockey player in the world on their roster. Well, if he's the best hockey player in the world, then why in the hell aren't they getting out of the first round? Whether you say injuries or not, and if they're saying Gino is the second best in the world, I just don't see it.
No.
You know, I mean, these guys have passed their prime. I do think the guys like McDavid and Draisaitl and guys like that have definitely passed them up. I still see Ovechkin being probably more dominating of a player than maybe some of the guys in Pittsburgh, and he's almost the same age, if not older than them. I just don't see it. You know, Philadelphia, they're in a rebuilding mode. They have an issue with their goaltending, I think, big time. Not only on the ice now, but off the ice. There was reports coming out of Canada that a rape civil suit is against Team Canada in 2018. Carter Hart was one of the people interviewed. I know he was on that team. There's 5 NHL players that are on an NHL roster came off of that team. There's a lot of scuttlebutt going around on that. There's a lot of cloud hanging over his head. I can see that could drain on a goaltender, whether he's involved in it or not involved in it. You know, it won't come out yet. I'm still working on that end of things. I think that's going to pull the Flyers down. Besides their coach, he's not going to put up with mediocre goaltending as well as bad play or undisciplined play. That team has a lot of issues, and I think, you know, that team is definitely in a rebuilding stage. I think that might be the worst team in that division. It kills me to say that. But I just don't see them. They look.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that they were relying on Carter Hart, and if he's unavailable to them because of off-ice issues, then they even run into problems with their backup because they can't get their backup. He's
he's
in Russia.
He's in a Russian jail right now. He was supposed to be the backup going into this season. He's got to serve military time. They arrested him. Technically, he was poisoned. They don't know if it was from Russian or not. But
Did Russians do that?
Yeah, the president will pull anything to get away with anything. And I'd like to send out an invitation to the Russian president. Come over here, bring your Russian team. I'll get my men's league team. We'll play you guys.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Winner gets out of winner get out of the country you don't belong in. How's that sound? A little bit of politics for you.
You know, on that note, I think it's probably time we take a break. In the Crease will return right after this.
All of the produce you see here is distributed at our 3 food pantries every other week on Tuesday at Baldwin Presbyterian Church and every other week on Wednesdays at the Wallace Building in Whitehall and every other Thursday here at the Shim location. The food pantry schedule is on our website and we look forward to seeing you.
Welcome back to In the Crease. We're going to switch our attention over to the Western Conference, although we should have kept the cameras running during the commercial break, as we had a lot of interesting discussions in there. Bob, in the Western Conference, I'm not impressed. You know, I mean, if you could see the grades I've given, they're all C's. And St. Louis I gave an A to because it looked like Bennington was coming back with his game. And if he can maintain that, they've got a nice 1-2 punch with Bennington and Tom Grice, who is a good backup goalie. But, man, I tell you what, nobody else here has any net minding at all, I think.
See, to me, it's Colorado's cup to lose again. They did it with Kemper, which I think is an average goalie at best. They signed a goalie I think is adequate enough. He was the backup behind probably the best goalie in the league last year.
That'd be Georgiev.
And St. Louis, you know, you can never take them out of it. They're well coached, obviously. I don't think anyone's counting Minnesota in, but I think when you have a dominating goalie at his age of Fleury, he's going to be still going for the win record. He can get it there. Maybe he's been healthy, knock on wood, Fleury.
Yeah.
If he puts up 35-plus wins this season, you know, I definitely think he could get there. Winnipeg, I like Winnipeg's goaltending.
Really? With Hellebuyck?
I think Hellebuck's a very good goalie, but I don't think they have much around him on the blue line. I think their scoring went down, and Winnipeg's a hard place to play because it's dark, it's cold, a lot of travel.
And it's Winnipeg. And you know what? While you mention that, I should mention that someone who's been on the show several times in interview, Ray Razzavolo, is one of the he's Hellebuck's his mentor. They trained together up in Canada. So I bet you're glad of hearing that, aren't you, Ray? There you go. So, okay, we got the. You still think it's Colorado? I think Georgiev.
They're just fast.
I know
they are super fast.
I know that.
And they're hard to play against. They're physical. They're gritty. They might have the most underrated players up the middle. I think hockey.
The only team
they
that
puck possession well. They win faceoffs. They know how to play the system. They give up a lot of bad angle shots. They don't give up a lot of rebound shots. And with the goaltending that they had last year, I mean, if you'd have told me they would have won the cup with that goaltending, I would have said, man, I don't know if I'd laid $1 down on that bet.
We're talking about Darcy Kemper, who is now with the Washington Capitals.
And he's going to get bombarded this year because Washington, everyone knows they don't play defense. Give it to Ovechkin on the one circle, and he'll score his 50 goals, and he'll be a -10.
I think the only team in the West that maybe can stay speed-wise with Colorado is possibly Edmonton. But in the net, they have Jack Campbell. And does anybody know what they have Mike Smith on their roster still?
Yeah.
But I heard he was going to retire.
I heard he's been having some health issues, concussions still, knee problem. I'm a big fan of Smith. I was hoping He could have rejuvenated his career after the concussions and some of the injuries, but just seems like he's one of those guys, that injuries are just going to force you to maybe quit playing.
Yeah. And again, the Kings are relying on Jonathan Quick. I've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years, he's really all they have.
Yes.
And as he plays, that's how the team goes. And man, if anything happens to Quick.
And I hate to say this, he's been trying to be replaced multiple years by different goalies. And it always seems like when push comes to shove, he finds a way to get his net back in.
Yeah.
I think the Kings have done nothing to help the guy. I mean, I see when you get older, you might want to cut down playing from 70 games to maybe 40 games at that age. But if you rotate them, you have a good system, you have a good team, you have a good coaching plan, the Kings could surprise you. But again, I don't know if Quick can carry a team at his age anymore with the amount of shots he sees in the game.
He sees a lot.
And he does see a lot of rubber.
He does play fun, though.
Yeah. I mean, he's by far the most athletic goalie in the NHL, hands down, even at his age. I mean, some people tell you it's Vasilevsky. When you're that big, you don't have to move like that. Quick's a very small goalie. He's probably one of the smaller goalies besides the Nashville guy, Saros. Those two guys got to play so different than the modern day goalie.
Yep.
And it's not a surprise that Nashville and LA, they get very good goaltending play because those guys are very talented and very athletic.
Yeah, like you say, they can't play on their knees.
Correct.
Yeah. The other team in the West that I thought might have a chance is Dallas, but they've done something weird in the Nets, Bob. They got Jake Ottinger, they have Kubodin, and they have Scott Wedgwood, and they've decided to go with Ottinger as their starter. Are you comfortable with that, or
no? And Dallas is going to struggle because it seems like they're not in it to win it, and there's a lot of teams in, especially this division, that is not in it to win it.
Yeah.
You don't understand the off-season moves they make. 1 minute they want to score, 1 minute they want to defend, 1 minute they want to go out and get a goaltending. I mean, the chances of Dallas winning in that division is going to be very difficult because there's so many good teams that are probably more skilled and more physical than Dallas. And when you don't have a good goaltender, as we always say, you're a 500 team at best. And I think that's where Dallas is going to be, a 500 team. And no one's talking about Chicago, aging Kane and aging Taves. And that team's been, since the alleged abuse cases in there, when it goes back to Quinville and all that situation with the GM and the player being bullied and all that. I mean, what has that team been? And, you used to talk about Chicago as the team to beat.
Yeah.
They had two of the best players in the NHL on it. They had a young prospect. They've totally rebuilt that team, and I'm surprised that Taves and Kane is still on that team.
Really?
Because they could really help a Stanley Cup contender to put them over the top.
Yeah, they could.
Just like we didn't talk about Giroux going to Ottawa. He's now wearing an A there.
Yeah.
He's back in his hometown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to help Ottawa win some games that they probably wouldn't win with a caliber of a scorer like him.
Yeah, and Chicago's relying on Peter Mrazek, who I think for the last couple of seasons has been the most overrated
Correct.
goaltender.
You could say there's a lot of good overrated goalies in the league. Everyone's reading their own newspaper clipping. Goaltending has really went down in the last season, and I thought it would have got better out of COVID because goalies had a better chance of concentrating with no one in the stands.
Good point.
And I would have thought the goalies would have really been the star of the NHL.
And we might as well bring this up now because it's something I've said almost every show on this. I blame the butterfly because the butterfly, when you are a goaltender, should be a save selection.
Correct.
It should not be a style. And all of these goalies who make the butterfly the style, they're all getting lit up right now. It took a couple of seasons. But Matt Murray's a perfect example of this. He came out gangbusters, got 2 cups with the Pens, and then everybody said, you know what? This guy goes down awful quick, and then suddenly his glove hand, guess what? He doesn't have one.
And with the technology being brought in the game, everyone has an iPad on the bench now. Yeah. Everyone has all their film on everything. You can break down the tape right on the bench now, where you next shift, you know what that goalie weakness is, and you only played 1 minute shift. The fourth time you go out there, your second shift, fourth shift on the ice, you know how to beat the goalie to get that chance, and it's all from that technology. And that's why goalies got to be unpredictable. Your Brodeurs, your Hassicks, guys like that were so unpredictable. And I mean, if you want to go back to a goaltender that probably ruined the game, it was probably Patrick Waugh.
Yes.
If you really want to go deep into that, because he changed the game, being hey, let's play our percentages, let's come out and get on our knees, play the angle, play our percentages, and hope the guys don't beat us. Yep. And with the technology and the sticks and the equipment that these players are using, whether it's their skates, which allows them to be stronger, faster, quicker on the ice, more rigid with the higher steel on their blades. Goalies had to adapt their equipment too. They have a new cowlingless skate now because goalies don't make skate saves anymore. So they're higher blade, the higher pitch. You get more push on the ice. So when you're down in the butterfly, you can, move around from your pads. That also ruined the sport.
Yeah.
Because now goalies can't skate as well as they once did. They don't handle the puck as much now as they used to because they put the trapezes behind the net.
Yep.
Now the game is so robotic now. The style is so robotic from every level now, and the little kids aren't able to develop and show their true skills because everyone wants a coach like the NHL. And I'll never forget a coaching clinic that Kevin Constantine did in Pittsburgh, where he said, let the kids be hockey players, don't let them be robots. And that's what the NHL has become, and that's why
a good point.
That's why the sport is what it is, still third or fourth.
I think that's excellent. Well, we gave you a brief thumbnail sketch on what's happening in the Atlantic and the Eastern and the Western conferences as we see it. I guess now we can step out on a limb, and even before the first official puck has dropped in the first official game, who do you like for this year's Cup?
I think it's hard to see Colorado not repeating. I really do. I think it's going to be the CC Cup. Colorado, Carolina.
Wow, that's impressive.
I think Broad Brendamore is a great coach. I think he doesn't have talent. He gets the most out of every player. I mean, name their superstar.
Okay.
I mean, Stahl was their captain.
Yeah.
And he played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And
they got rid of him.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, that he's their captain, he's their leader.
Yeah.
Brendamore made a great playoff run with his second and third string goalie last year because his number one got hurt.
Yeah.
And he didn't use that as an excuse like you heard around town here. Oh, Jari got hurt. Casey got hurt. We got to go with Mr. Broccoli and beef or whatever. Who signed with the Rangers?
Yeah.
He can't beat them. Join them. But that's my prediction.
Yeah,
the
Torts
CC
is back coaching again.
Yeah, Torts is.
That could be fun. I always like Torts.
Oh, it's going to be fun in the interview room.
It sure is.
In front of the camera. He's going to make a lot of people unhappy.
Well, if I got to step out on a limb, I think Colorado did a bad thing with their. I don't feel as good about Georgiev as Bob does, and I think you probably have a good shot with St. Louis once again getting in from the. And over on the East, it really is, I think, a toss-up between Carolina and the Rangers. I don't like saying that because I
think the Rangers are too young.
You could be right. And like you say, the coaching could be the thing that pushes them over. But that's my predictions for the.
And we're going to bet a little bit of Mama Sauce on the series.
We usually do. And that's one bet I don't mind losing. So there you have our first show of the season. You have a thumbnail sketch of our lookout and what we hope to do. It's really great to be back with you, Bob. Good to be on the air once again.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to let a couple of weeks for the season go by before we come back onto the air again, and then we'll have a whole lot more commentary and good things for you. So there you have our first episode of the season. And remember, when it comes to hockey, if you're in the game, you're in the crease.